I woke up to find my dream shattered. My house fund was gone, drained overnight. My parents sat at breakfast smiling as if nothing had happened, while my younger sister Grace filmed herself outside, posing with a brand new luxury car. "You can just save again, Olivia. She needs this more," they said, dismissing years of sacrifice like scraps on the table. My chest burned with humiliation, but I kept silent, because what they didn't know was that every signature, every transaction was tied to them as well. And soon their golden facade would start to crack wide open. I always knew my family loved appearances. To outsiders, we were the Hayes family, the picture-perfect clan that posed in coordinated outfits every Thanksgiving, that uploaded smiling portraits at Christmas with matching sweaters, that captioned every post with phrases like "family is forever" or "blessed beyond measure." My mother carefully curated our online presence as if it were a portfolio of happiness, a brand she was selling to the world. Neighbours envied us. Old friends commented under the pictures with words like goals and perfect family. But the reality felt different from the inside. At 36, I had spent more than a decade quietly saving for my first home. Every extra hour I worked as an architect, every bonus I earned went into that account. It wasn't just money, it was proof that I mattered, that I could build something for myself without depending on anyone. Grace, my younger sister by 6 years, was the opposite of me. She was the darling, the princess. My parents doted on her in ways I never experienced. They excused her recklessness, praised her charm, and treated her smallest accomplishments as victories. To them, I was the reliable one, the sister who didn't need attention because I could take care of myself. To Grace, I was the boring, predictable, older sibling whose life lacked sparkle. I told myself it didn't matter. I would get my house, my independence, and finally escape the dynamic that had kept me small for so long. At dinner one evening, I couldn't contain my excitement. "I'm almost there," I said, setting down my fork. "Just a few more months of saving and I'll have enough for the down payment." My father nodded without looking up from his plate. My mother smiled politely, the kind of smile that was more reflex than emotion. But Grace's eyes flickered up from her phone. She didn't say anything, just tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a half smile I couldn't read. It was the briefest moment, yet it left a chill running down my spine. Later that night, I saw her post in stories on Instagram, twirling in a designer dress, tagging luxury brands, giggling into the camera. One caption read, "Big surprise coming soon. Can't wait to show you guys." My chest tightened. Grace had no job, no savings. Everything she flaunted was either bought for her or borrowed. What big surprise could she possibly mean? The next morning, as I sipped coffee, I logged into my banking app out of habit. At first, I thought there was a glitch. Numbers didn't match. Transactions appeared that I hadn't made. My stomach dropped. Several large withdrawals, all within days, all drained from the account I had guarded for years. I stared at the screen, heart racing, replaying the moment from last night. Grace's smirk, her teasing hint about something big. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the ledger again. This wasn't possible. That account was locked, protected. Nobody but me had access. I confronted my parents at breakfast. "Something's wrong with my account," I said, voice shaking. "Thousands are missing. Do either of you know anything about this?" My father folded his newspaper calmly. Olivia, you always worry too much. Maybe you miscalculated. These things happen. I didn't miscalculate, I snapped. This isn't a math error. The money is gone. My mother's tone was softer, but equally dismissive. Sweetheart, don't jump to conclusions. Stress can make you see problems that aren't really there. You've been working too hard. I looked between them, feeling heat rise to my face. Were they gaslighting me, or was I truly losing my grip? That night, Grace posted again. New shoes, a new handbag, captions filled with glittering emojis. And at the end of her story, a clip of her winking at the camera. Something huge is coming. Stay tuned. I turned off my phone, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind spun. Was I paranoid, or had something sinister already begun? The smile she gave me at dinner replayed in my mind, sharp and knowing, and then the thought hit me. Maybe the perfect family everyone admired was built on my silence, my sacrifices. Maybe the golden cage wasn't just holding me in, it was feeding her freedom. The day I realized the money was truly gone felt like watching my future burn in slow motion. I sat at my desk at work, staring at the banking app, refreshing it again and again as if the numbers might magically return. But the balance never changed. My house fund, 10 years of sacrifice, had been drained to zero. By noon, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Grace's latest TikTok. I almost ignored it, but the caption pulled me in. POV, your family loves you enough to give you everything you want. I pressed play. There she was, standing in front of a gleaming white luxury car, her arms spread wide, laughter echoing over the music. She slid into the driver's seat, flipped her hair dramatically, and winked at the camera. Comments flooded in. OMG Queen. Manifestation works, or you're living the dream. I felt sick. That was my dream. That was my money. That evening I confronted my parents again, shaking with rage. Grace bought a car, a luxury car. With what money? Because my house fund is gone. My mother sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Olivia, you're overreacting. You've always been responsible. You'll save it back quickly. Grace needed this more than you. Needed? My voice cracked. She needed to steal the only thing I've worked for? You call that need? My father's words were colder. You sound jealous. Don't you think your sister deserves some happiness? You're selfish if you can't see that. I could barely breathe. They weren't just dismissing me, they were siding with her, protecting her, turning me into the villain in my own story. That night, as I lay awake, I replayed their words over and over. You can just save again. She needs this more. You're selfish. The phrases twisted inside my skull like a poison dripping into my thoughts. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish for wanting more than what I already had. But then my phone buzzed again. A new notification from the bank, a statement update. I opened it, scrolling through the transactions, and froze. The withdrawals hadn't just been authorised by Grace, there were signatures, 2 of them. My parents had signed as guarantors, giving her legal access to the account. My chest tightened. They hadn't just stood by, they had enabled it. They had given her the keys to dismantle my future. The next weekend we attended a family gathering. I avoided Grace as much as possible, but she made sure everyone noticed her new car. She bragged about the gift, framing it as though it had been a collective family decision. My parents beamed, nodding proudly. Olivia has always been so generous, my mother told an aunt. She understands the importance of helping her sister. The room buzzed with approval. I sat frozen, the air thick with humiliation. In that moment, I wasn't Olivia, the successful architect. I was Olivia, the bitter, jealous sister who couldn't celebrate her siblings' happiness. I saw the way my cousins glanced at me, pity in their eyes. Grace had stolen my savings, but my parents had stolen my reputation. I left early, unable to breathe, but as I drove home, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Check carefully, it's not just the car. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The sender didn't sign their name, but I recognized the area code. It was from a relative. My hand shook as I read the words again. Not just the car. What else had Grace taken? What else had my parents signed away? I scrolled back to her TikTok, replaying the video frame by frame, searching for clues. In one shot, barely visible in the background, I noticed a folder of documents sitting on the passenger seat. Legal papers. My name, my account, something worse? My mind spiraled. If it wasn't just the car, what could it be? A loan, a mortgage, a debt tied directly to me? The poison was spreading. And I realised with a sudden clarity that if I didn't act soon, I wouldn't just lose my dream of a house, I could lose everything. I put down my phone, staring into the darkness of my apartment. My pulse steadied, not with calm, but with resolve. They thought I was powerless, that I would swallow their betrayal in silence. But they had underestimated me. I leaned forward, whispering to myself, "It's not just the car. Let's see what else you've taken." And in that whisper, I felt the first spark of an idea. My mother's birthday party was supposed to be a celebration, but for me, it became the night my world shattered completely. The Hayes family knew how to put on a show, candles glowing, wine glasses clinking, relatives gathered in their best clothes. My mother beamed as if she were the matriarch of some dynasty, the kind of woman who could post a picture online and instantly gather 200 likes. I stayed near the back, trying to keep my smile intact. Then Grace walked in, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her hair perfectly curled. Outside, parked just beyond the window, gleamed her luxury car. She wasted no time pointing it out. "Isn't she beautiful?" Grace announced, leading half the room outside to admire it. My father chuckled, patting her shoulder as if she had earned it. "All thanks to your sister Olivia," he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. "She's always been the responsible one, and she sacrificed for her little sister. That's what family means, sacrifice." The room filled with approving nods. I felt the blood drain from my face. Sacrifice. As if they had rewritten the story, turning theft into generosity, betrayal into virtue. My mother added with pride, "Olivia has always known her role. Grace deserves this happiness." I stood frozen, a polite smile stretched painfully across my lips, while inside I was screaming. My relatives congratulated Grace, and in their eyes I saw pity. Pity for being the overlooked sister, the bitter one who couldn't be happy for family. My throat burned, but I couldn't speak. To protest would only confirm the image they had painted. Jealous, ungrateful, cold. Then the night turned from unbearable to surreal. My cousin whispered to me as the crowd admired the car, "Did you know Ethan co-signed the loan?" For a second, I couldn't process the words. Ethan, my ex-boyfriend. the man I had loved for 4 years, the man I once imagined building a home with. I confronted him later, pulling him aside. "Is it true?" My voice trembled. "You signed for her car?" He looked away, ashamed. "Your parents asked me. They said you'd already agreed. I thought I was helping your family." The betrayal hit harder than any punch. Not only had my parents stolen my savings, they had dragged the ghost of my past into their scheme. Grace smiled knowingly from across the room, as if savouring my humiliation. I left the party before the cake was cut. Driving home, I couldn't stop shaking. My apartment felt like a tomb when I stepped inside. The silence pressed against me, heavier than the noise of the party. I collapsed onto the couch, tears spilling unchecked. For hours I cried, not just for the money, not just for the house fund. I cried for the little girl who once dreamed that family meant safety. I cried for the teenager who worked double shifts to pay for school while Grace was handed everything. I cried for the woman who had tried so hard to believe that loyalty and love would eventually be rewarded. Memories flooded back. Christmas mornings when Grace got the expensive toys while I unwrapped socks. Birthdays when my achievements were brushed aside so the spotlight could shine on her. All those moments I told myself didn't matter, now returned sharp and undeniable. When the tears ran dry, I lay in the darkness, hollow. Sleep refused to come. Night after night, I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, haunted by every word spoken at that party. Sacrifice, jealous, selfish. They echoed like poison in my ears. At my lowest point, I considered giving up entirely. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe life would be easier if I just stopped fighting. I sank deeper, the edges of my will fraying. But then one sleepless night, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, I stumbled on a video. The title caught my eye. "Surviving a Narcissistic Family. You're Not Alone." A young woman stared into the camera, her eyes steady, her voice trembling with conviction. She spoke about gaslighting, favoritism, the cruelty of parents who pit siblings against each other. Her words pierced me, each one a mirror of my life. "You are not crazy. You are not selfish. You are a survivor." I sat upright, tears stinging my eyes again, but this time they weren't from despair. For the first time in weeks, a flicker of light broke through the darkness. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't alone. There were others like me. I replayed the video, clinging to every word, my mind racing. Maybe there was a way out. Maybe there was a way to fight back, not with anger, but with truth. As the screen lit my face in the dark room, my eyes narrowed, a spark igniting. For the first time I felt something new, hope, dangerous and fragile, but alive. The video I watched that night didn't just wake me up. It lit a fire I hadn't felt in years. I began to see everything differently, as if a veil had finally lifted. My family wasn't perfect. They weren't noble. They weren't misunderstood. They were toxic, and I had been groomed my whole life to accept it. The next morning, I opened my laptop and began searching through every record, every document tied to my savings account. My pulse quickened when I realized something disturbing. The account wasn't just linked to the car loan. My parents had leveraged it as collateral for a separate loan, one attached to their own mortgage. My name appeared not as an owner, but as a guarantor. I scrolled, heart hammering, piecing the puzzle together. Grace's car wasn't just my loss. It was the trigger to unravel everything. If she defaulted, it wouldn't only destroy me, it would pull my parents down as well. Their house, their finances, their facade of stability, all at risk. For years they had told me I was selfish, but now I saw the truth. They weren't protecting Grace out of love, they were protecting themselves. She was reckless, but she was also their shield, and I was the insurance policy. Anger surged through me, hot and sharp. I opened a drawer and pulled out the worn folder where I kept childhood keepsakes. Photos, report cards, birthday cards. I stared at a picture of me at age 10, smiling with a ribbon in my hair, holding a second-place trophy. Next to me, Grace held a plastic crown from a school play. In the photo, everyone's eyes were on her, not me. Even then, I was the afterthought. I remembered birthdays when she received expensive gifts, and I got practical ones. I remembered being told to be the bigger person, to forgive her tantrums, to clean up her messes. My parents called it love, but it had always been favoritism dressed as family values. I placed the photo down carefully, wiping my eyes. That little girl deserved justice. And if no one else would give it to her, I would. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of bank transactions, copies of signatures, every communication I could find. Late into the night, I typed notes, building a timeline of betrayal. My desk became a war room, cluttered with evidence. The next step was help. I made an appointment with a lawyer, my hands trembling as I handed over the folder. He flipped through the papers silently, his brows furrowed. Finally, he looked up. "You have a case," he said. "But this won't just expose your sister. It could take your parents down too. Are you prepared for that?" My throat tightened. Images of family dinners, childhood laughter, Christmas mornings flashed in my mind. Despite everything, part of me still longed for the family I wished I had, but that family never existed. All that was left was survival. "I'm prepared," I whispered. Leaving his office, I felt both terrified and alive. For the first time, I wasn't powerless. At night, when fear crept in, I logged into an online support group I had joined. Survivors shared stories so eerily similar to mine. Parents who favoured one child, siblings who exploited the other, years of gaslighting and betrayal. Someone wrote, "Justice isn't revenge, it's healing." I read it again and again, letting it sink in. Healing, that was what I wanted, not just payback, but freedom. Days passed and the pieces of my plan began to fall into place. Quietly, without alerting my family, I authorized adjustments on my accounts, rerouted my assets, and froze access wherever I could. Grace posted endless videos of herself, cruising in her car, oblivious to the storm I was preparing. My parents continued posting their picture-perfect dinners, unaware that their foundation was crumbling beneath them. Each click of my mouse, each signed form was a step closer to reclaiming control. For the first time in my life, I was no longer reacting. I was strategizing. One evening, I sat alone at my kitchen table with a pen in my hand. The document before me was the culmination of weeks of planning. My hand hesitated, hovering over the paper. 1,000 memories screamed at me to stop, to protect them even now. But then I thought of that little girl in the photo, the one always told to be the bigger person. I pressed the pen firmly to the page, signing my name with a steady hand. The sound of ink scratching against paper echoed in the silence. When I set the pen down, my chest rose with a sharp breath. The decision was made. I looked up at the ceiling, eyes burning, but this time not from despair. This time, it was resolve. Whatever happened next, I would not go quietly. The camera of my mind zoomed in on my face, jaw clenched, eyes steady, a woman who had finally decided enough was enough. The storm broke on a Tuesday morning. Grace was filming herself in the driveway, twirling the keys to her luxury car for yet another TikTok, when the tow truck pulled up. At first, she thought it was a mistake. She laughed, tried to wave them off, even recorded herself demanding answers. But when the driver explained the vehicle was being repossessed for missed payments, her laughter cracked. Within hours, her accounts were frozen. The credit cards she loved to swipe so freely declined at every turn. The phone she used to broadcast her perfect life went silent. And with each passing moment, her online followers turned from admiration to mockery. But the real blow came later that evening. My parents sat in the kitchen, pale and rigid, clutching a letter from the bank. Their house, the pristine two-story that had been the backdrop of every family photo, was under threat of foreclosure. The loan they had signed, tied to my fund and Grace's reckless purchase, had finally caught up with them. When I walked in, the air was thick with panic. My father slammed the letter on the table. "Do you see what you've done?" he shouted, veins straining in his neck. "You've destroyed this family." My mother's voice trembled, higher pitched than usual. "We trusted you to keep this family together, Olivia. Instead, you betrayed us." I held a folder in my hands, thick with documents, and felt the weight of years pressing down. Slowly, deliberately, I placed it on the table. "No," I said calmly, "this family destroyed itself the moment you decided one child mattered more than the other." Their faces twisted in disbelief, but I didn't flinch. For too long, I had absorbed their version of reality. Tonight, I spoke mine. I opened the folder, spreading out papers like evidence in a courtroom. Here are the bank statements, the signatures, the legal documents tying my savings to your mortgage. Do you want to know what they prove? That you both used me, that you chose to sacrifice my future so Grace could parade around in a car she never earned. Grace shifted in her seat, pale and silent. Her confidence evaporated. My parents' eyes darted from page to page, their facade unravelling. "You call me selfish," I continued, voice steady. "But tell me, what's selfish? Wanting to use my own money for a home? Or deciding that my years of hard work didn't matter because your princess needed another toy?" The room fell silent. My father opened his mouth, but no words came. My mother's eyes darted to the relative seated nearby. Yes, I had made sure the extended family was present. They needed to hear the truth, to see it with their own eyes. "Look at them," I said, my gaze sweeping the room. "You've all whispered that I was jealous, that I was bitter. But you never asked why. You never saw the pattern, birthday after birthday, sacrifice after sacrifice. Grace took and they let her, and when I finally stood up for myself, they called it betrayal." Gasps and murmurs rippled among the relatives. The evidence on the table was undeniable. The narrative my parents had spun for years was unravelling before everyone's eyes. My father slammed his fist down.
"You ungrateful." I cut him off. "No, I'm done.
The words words echoed heavy and final. For once, I felt taller, stronger, untethered from the weight of their expectations. My mother's voice cracked, desperate. "You'll regret this, Olivia. Families forgive. Families stay together." I shook my head slowly. Families don't destroy each other's futures and call it love. This isn't forgiveness. This is survival. For a moment, the only sound was the rustle of papers as a cousin picked one up, scanning the signatures. "She's right," the cousin whispered. She didn't lie. They did. And just like that, the tide shifted. My parents' carefully constructed image of noble sacrifice shattered. Their shame was exposed, undeniable. Grace whispered, her voice trembling. "Everything." I met her eyes. "No, Grace. I just stopped letting you ruin me." I gathered my folder, sliding the papers back inside, my movements calm and deliberate. Chairs creaked as relatives exchanged uneasy glances. My parents looked smaller than I'd ever seen them, their authority crumbling in the silence. I stood, the weight of years finally lifting from my shoulders. "You wanted me to be the scapegoat, the villain, but the truth is clear now. I was never selfish. I was never the problem. You were." Without another word, I turned toward the door. My footsteps echoed as I left, the tension in the room following me like a shadow. Behind me, voices rose, accusations, defences, confusion, but none of it mattered anymore. The night air hit my face as I stepped outside. For the first time, I felt free. And yet a part of me wondered, was this truly the end? Or had I only just pulled the first thread in a web far deeper than I imagined? The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't consumed by defending myself against whispers or accusations. Instead, I focused on something that had always seemed out of reach, building a life of my own. Through legal channels, I recovered a portion of what had been taken from me. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to stand on my own feet, enough to make a down payment on a modest apartment, a place that was mine, untethered from the family that had always bound me like chains. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room, the sound of my footsteps echoing off bare walls. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching on dust motes floating lazily in the air. It wasn't the dream house I'd envisioned for so long, but in that moment it was more beautiful than any mansion, because it was mine. Every brick, every corner, every inch of space represented freedom. Meanwhile, Grace's glittering facade was crumbling. Without the car, without the funds, without the endless validation, she began to unravel. Online, her followers turned. Comments mocked her fall from luxury princess to spoiled fraud. Clips of her old videos resurfaced, spliced with the repossession footage, circulating as memes. She had become the punchline she once believed she was immune to. My parents fared no better. Their home teetered on the edge of foreclosure, their reputation in the family destroyed. They tried to reach out, not with apologies, but with veiled demands. "You're still our daughter," my mother said on the phone, her voice brittle. "We need you. You can't abandon us." But the truth was clear now. Without me, they had no anchor. For years, they had leaned on me, drained me, expected me to carry burdens they refused to acknowledge. Twist of fate, it was only when I left that they realized how much they had depended on the daughter they had dismissed as selfish. One evening, I sat on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by unopened boxes. The quiet was strange but comforting. I leaned against the wall, looking out the window at the city lights. A smile crept across my face, soft and almost hesitant. There was pain, yes, wounds that would take time to heal, but layered beneath the ache was something I had never felt before. Peace. In that silence, I thought of the little girl I once was, standing with her second-place trophy, waiting for someone to notice her. I whispered into the empty room, "You made it. We made it." As days turned into weeks, I began sharing my story, not with bitterness, but with purpose. A friend invited me onto her podcast, a small platform dedicated to survival stories. At first, my voice shook as I recounted the betrayal, the gaslighting, the years of favoritism. But then something shifted. Listeners began reaching out. Messages poured in. "That's my story too. You gave me courage. I thought I was alone." Each response stitched a piece of me back together. I wasn't just telling my story, I was giving others permission to tell theirs. Justice wasn't just the downfall of those who wronged me. Justice was healing, collective and shared. In time, life offered me something I had almost stopped believing in: love. Not the transactional kind my family practiced, not the kind that demanded sacrifice without return, but real love, built on respect and choice. He didn't rescue me, I didn't need rescuing, but he walked beside me, steady and kind, reminding me that trust could exist outside the wreckage of my past. Together we began to weave something new, something my old life had never given me: a chosen family. Friends who stayed, partners who listened, people who valued me, not for what I could give, but for who I was. One night, sitting with them around my small dining table, laughter filling the room, I realised this was what family should have been all along. Not obligation, not favoritism, not control, just love. As the evening wound down, I stepped onto my balcony, the city stretching before me. The air was cool, the kind that makes you breathe a little deeper. I thought about my parents, about Grace, about the chaos still unravelling behind closed doors, and I felt no urge for vengeance. The sweetest revenge wasn't watching them fall. It wasn't the repossessed car, the looming foreclosure, the humiliation. The sweetest revenge was this: standing free, untangled, living a life they could never touch. I whispered to the night, to the girl I once was, to anyone who might be listening. The sweetest revenge isn't their downfall, it's my freedom. And for the first time, I truly believed it.